different musical projects, right?
Yeah.
What did this album give you which others hadn't previously? Like, what felt unique about this record from a creator's perspective?
I think for me, like, the whole nature of this project is like I can just explore whatever weird idea I have. You know, I think like playing in bands for so long and collaborative things, like I love the collaborative process. And in a way, it's you know, I can be an editor to other people and they can be an editor to me. This is just a kind of realm where no matter how repetitive or like immature or whatever, I can just get it out, you know? That's kind of the like nature of it. Like I just literally was always playing in bands forever and I love that and I still do it, but it's just a space to like almost be like monomaniacal about certain themes and stuff like that. Not really worry or have to run it by someone. You know, obviously like even this is collaborative with like the other musicians who play on it, or, you know, my friend Jarvis who co-produced it. Like there's still some, I'm always going to work with others because I just love it so much, but it's the most I can kind of just be unedited in whatever like weird ideas I have, or, you know, repeat the same ideas, you know.
How is the way that you approach the collaboration with this different to, you know, performing in a band with others, say?
Yeah, just that they're pretty fully formed by the time I show them to someone else, you know, but then I'm still open to the way it can be changed. I mean, to be honest with you, it's almost like, to me, it's just to express through the lyrics. Like the music is kind of I love the music, but, you know, I'm limited in what I can do musically. So the music just serves the stories or the lyrics, you know, and then I think by the time it gets to someone else, like the lyrics are going to be formed, but I'm open to like, you know, I'm just lucky to be friends with such talented musicians, so they can often like bring forth some other energy musically. But yeah, I think it's just a place where I like, even in a band, sometimes there's like, you're self-conscious, even if it's your best friends or whatever. Like, I think that this is a place where I try to be as least self-conscious as possible, like lyrically, you know.
In terms of lyrics as well, the thing that really stands out about this album is the feeling that every line has, you know, been very kind of carefully taken care of, and every line is pushing the story forward, or it's delivering a new piece of information. There's seldom a line wasted, you know, it's always doing something. How long did you labor over them for? Was it quite a spontaneous process, or was it one where it was refining a lot, or
yeah,
how did that side of it take shape?
I appreciate it. Yeah, there's a lot of like refining for sure. I've like, the weird thing with me with lyrics is that I don't actually like sit down and write lyrics. I let whatever come, like just a line will come to mind or something when I'm just like strumming. And then usually that like weird natural line where I don't know where it came from will often be the sort of like centerpiece. And then I just sort of like, through repetition of playing is how I write. Like I don't sit down and be like, my song about this, it begins, you know, like it's just a weird sort of meditative repetition. And then lines will come and go, you know what I mean? Or like, you know, and I'm sure you've like heard people talk about this, or I have, like, there'll be a few lines that I know are placeholder lines that like at some point I feel like could be improved. But the one thing I try not to do is ever change the like that weird natural thought that came to mind, because that's where some of the magic is for me. I'm like, it's so not intellectual. It's like, where did that come from? Okay, cool. And then let me like buffer it with some things I have thought about, you know.
On say like Forever Night, for example, then what was that line that first came to you that was at the heart of it?
That's a great question. I was actually like, I mean, honestly, like that was like an experience where I had left someone who I just thought was so wonderful, and I was like in the city driving home and filled with this feeling of like love, you know, and I was like so activated. So actually the bridge like chorus thing where it's like, I want you to fall in love with me, I must be clear about that, like that was almost the impetus of the feeling, you know, like that's such a weird basic line, and then everything grew around it, but it was then sort of buffered by this idea of like just driving through the city and being really activated by being among, and just, you know, like just being among all these other people who are having their own stories and their own experiences, and the excitement of that. And then then the beginning started to calm, and then I still at this point, I'm like, I feel like these lyrics are from something else, but I don't think they are. I haven't found out yet. You know what I mean? There's some, I don't know. We'll find out. So I don't think so, though. There's like some punk songs that I feel like get close to it, but I feel like I know the ones I'm thinking of and they're not the same. So, yeah.
How much of this record was made at night then? Kind of continuing with one of the motifs that runs through it and is very much present on that. I mean, from the first line, really, on that first
line. Yeah. I mean, that's when I really, it's changed, but I do, especially like during the pandemic and even now, like I do get really energized at night so most of it, yeah. It was like the centerpiece of what I could still do, you know, when night fell, like, and I used to go to shows and I used to see friends, you know, like all those things are gone for all of us. And like, so it just became like a centerpiece of like, well, I do have something I'm going to do tonight. Like, I'm just going to write. And, you know, I didn't know how to record at all. So I learned how to basically like record a little at home and demo. Like it just became like the centerpiece of my days, you know, which again was like a really nice reminder of like just how music will be there for you, you know? So yeah, I mean, a lot of it. Yeah.
It's interesting that you're saying, you know, it was a reminder of how music could be there for you. When was the last time before this that the music felt like it was really there for you in a similar way?
I mean, you know, always, I mean, now, I don't know. It just grows, you know? I'm more on it than ever that it's like, I mean, literally the other night I had a thought like music is salvation, which is very heavy and a weird thought that came to mind, but I'm like, it's the only salvation, you know, which is pretty heavy. So I don't have to run with that, but like, I don't know. I just more than ever, I'm like, cause lately I've been back to like writing again and then kind of demoing the songs at night at home. And it's like, I've just been thinking lately, like it's the one thing I do where or not the one thing, but it's something I do where I can get lost in it. And there's so many things you can get lost in that don't feel that good afterwards. Right. Or like, that maybe aren't that good for you. And I'm like, it's the thing I can get lost in that feels good after and is good for me, you know, like, and that's a really hard thing to find. So it's always regenerating for me. And, you know, and then you make changes to make sure it keeps regenerating, you know, it starts to get stale and like a particular band or a particular like way of doing things, you know, but I think as long as you're like serving it by making changes, it'll always serve you.
It's funny that you used that word at the start of that too, salvation. You know, music is salvation. Because that is another one of the motifs lyrically of this album where it feels like religious imagery is cropping up to a certain degree. I know Jesus gets a name check a few times as well. Were you conscious of where you were pulling that from, or is that one of those instances of things that are kind of coming out and you're not really sure where exactly they're rooted in?
Yeah, I just let it flow. You know what I mean? Like, I try not to... That's what I'm saying. Like, I want it to be a place where what comes is what comes. And if I get too into editing, then what am I, you know, on some level, I'm editing based on like someone else hearing it. And then where, you know, then it's like the cat chasing its own tail, you know what I mean? Like, so I just like feel like one thing I've started to notice is like, you know, I grew up like in this Catholic, like Irish Catholic household, you know, like a lot of weird, not even weird, just a lot of like Catholic sentiment got in there. And then like, I never continued that. It was just like put in there. And I think like, it's really interesting. I think what I'm really writing about, like when that stuff comes up, is like seeing like love and like universal love as like a path, you know, like, so it's not religious and it's, you know, it's like, it's me contending with whatever got in when I was young, but like in my own adult life as someone making choices about what my values are, like they are still this sort of like idea of following like a sense of universal love for others that is an unseen thing, you know? So there is like a spiritual component, but it's definitely not religious. And then I think just sometimes it's fun to bring that stuff in as a metaphor almost. Like it takes away, you know what I'm saying? Like in a way there's like, you probably shouldn't be using those things as a metaphor for your own like love or romantic love or universal love.
I think maybe does it come back to the core thing at religion too, which is the ideas that it preaches are in themselves inherently great. It's just that when organized religion comes into the picture,
yeah, of course. I mean, these are basic. These are basic. Yeah, exactly. Like I just think it's fun to kind of have nothing sacred in terms of what you reference, but like I do think that somehow they're working through me, and then in like my own choices, like there's some like there's one reference that's like in the Brothers Karamazov, there's the Grand Inquisitor chapter, and like there's this whole thing where it's supposed to be a stand-in for Christ, right? And I like you're pulling in like literature and religion, but really this is just a song about my affection for somebody, and I love that, like, if my like love for somebody is so big, like I'll bring in the biggest possible historical references to show, like, as like a testament to like how big this feeling is. Do you know what I mean? They're like stand-ins for like a very big value system.
And because we all have this connection to them, they work very efficiently on a universal level of conveying that.
Exactly.
What else can you think of outside of religion, that can have a similar effect to that in terms of universal symbols that are kind of you can utilize them in songwriting and they're always going to impact everyone in some way?
Yeah, that's why I like to reference like films and literature, and like, they're often pretty subtle, but I feel like they just allow me to be like this, again, if I'm writing like a more romantic song or like a platonic love song, like it's a way of saying like, this is how big this feeling is. It's as big as fucking, like Jesus or Casablanca or fucking, I don't know. I mean, I have a lot of like specific, like, or fucking, the Divine Comedy, right? Like it's as big as these feelings, whatever, you know what I mean? Like that's how big my feelings
I was speaking to someone on the podcast the other day who referenced that in their last record too.
Really?
Yeah,
nice. Yeah. Who was it?
Frank Turner, English kind of singer-songwriter guy.
All right, yeah.
That one in particular, there's so much to dive into, and that you can kind of just pick little bits from that work very nicely and give it a certain gravitas when you pop them in there.
Yeah, and that's the fun of like songwriting, is like there's such an economy to lyrics that, writing prose wouldn't get the same effect, for me. I'm just not good enough at writing prose.
Had you ever tried to write prose?
Yeah, for a long time. Yeah. And I just at a certain point was like, well, I always take these breaks and write music. This is writing too, and I love it. It's what I've done my whole life. Why am I working so hard to avoid this? Why do I see one form of writing? Not even elevated, just like what I'm supposed to do. Because I couldn't possibly like write a song.
I guess that when you were writing prose at the same time as music, did that take the pressure off music a little bit?
Yeah, exactly. And that's the key. That's like the way like you make some changes and it like gets a chance to regenerate, So yeah, I was always trying to I have a whole like weird journalism path that I followed for a while, and then I was like, that led to like trying to write fiction, and then that led to trying to write personal essays, and not all of it's bad, but there wasn't a lot of pleasure in it ever. Whereas like music, yeah, you work at it and it's sometimes you're really lost in it, but it was always pleasurable to me.
Well, it's difficult too, because sometimes people say that if it's enjoyable to make, it's not then enjoyable to listen to. But have you ever found that to be the case, or is that sort of a myth?
No, who says that?
That's kind of, well, I'm not thinking so much with music, but like when it comes to films and that sort of thing, it's the age-old thing. Yeah, it's a lot of fun to make.
It's different for everybody, But I will say, like, and there are frustrating moments when you're creating. I'm not like saying like it's all a breeze, like la la la, another tune, like. But I am interested in like pleasure and like fun and play and like joy, like that has to be there, and that that is there for me in music. But everybody's different, I mean, I they're like, I'm sure there's albums I love that were incredibly painful the whole way and there was no joy in it. And I'm so grateful they went through that to make the record, But I just think that when I was writing a lot, I would talk to like other writers, and it was just this like heavy, like, I always hated it. What I do is bad. And it's like, I don't know. I want to enjoy it. I want to find like joy in each part of the process. And that's not like happiness necessarily, but just some sense of like joy, like some deeper feeling of like, this feels good.
Some kind of fulfillment.
Yeah. And I would argue that anybody who's, even if it's torturous to make something, they're still finding, it's almost like semantics. Like they're still finding some joy in it.
What role does releasing play in that joy and fulfillment? Do you need to release in order to get some sense of joy from it? Or could you just make music and not put it out there and you would be as happy?
Yeah, that's I think it's a key thing, because like, I think you release it just to make the space to keep making stuff. That's the way I see it. Like there's something about, I have a lot of like difficulty like sharing stuff or like announcing, this is out, or, like it's uncomfortable for me. Like that's not a fun part of it, to like in any way, like promote it or whatever, you know what I mean? Like obviously playing shows is the fucking best, but yeah, I'm not like, sharing stuff is hard for me. And I've like realized like, I just have to do it because that clears up the psychic space to keep making stuff, and making stuff is what I really like. So it's almost like you have to do that just to get back to like making things. And I've always like, I've kind of had this idea of like, well, the song or like a song is like half finished until someone else hears it, like it's so people who like are making a masterpiece, but they never share with anyone, then it's never done. It's only done once it connects with someone else. So I love like the idea that people are finally hearing the songs, but I just have to stay away from the like, it's just hard for me to talk about it. It's hard for me to do stuff like this. You know what I mean? Like I just feel like embarrassed or like slight, like whatever, like, there's some shame in there of like, who am I to even do this stuff? So.
I think the thing with music as well, and I always say this, is that when we're doing interviews, the whole point is that you're kind of taking things that can't be translated and putting them into music and turning them into, if you want to call music a language, you're putting it into that.
Yeah.
Trying to translate it back, it doesn't really work in the same way.
No, it'll always be clumsy. Yeah.
How long had you kind of been sitting on this album for? How long had it been written and kind of good to go?
I recorded it last March. But I was writing up until like we recorded basically. I'll usually, I'm just kind of writing constantly. And then, at a certain point you're like, okay, these all feel like something together, but yeah, I'm just always writing. I mean, that's what I really enjoy. I mean, there's a lot of parts about it that I enjoy, but like, it's kind of what I just said. Like, I'm just trying, like this, as long as this thing can run where I can get back to like writing and having some sense that like, it might connect with someone down the road, then it's working, so it's just kind of constant for me.
There's a line on Midnight as well. I'm probably paraphrasing a little bit, but you say something along the lines of, I don't regret anything I said, so I'm just here to say what I mean.
I don't want to regret anything left unsaid.
Left unsaid.
Yeah.
In terms of the latter half of that, so I just want to say what I mean. How indicative does that feel of the lyrics on this record? How much of it do you feel is quite matter of fact, and how much do you feel is more masked and perhaps metaphor? And
that's a good question. I don't know. I think things are pretty literal. Like I like kind of like what we've been talking about. I appreciate getting a chance to talk about it. Like I really want to mix the like obscenely literal, obvious idea with imagery. Like that's just a fun combination for me. But like, I think things are pretty direct, like it's like, that's what it's funny, why it's funny to talk about it. If like a song is called Let Me Let It Go, then saying like, it's about like letting things get, it's so clear, and then I just want to like, sort of like, bolster things with like imagery or whatever's coming to mind. But I think it's pretty direct. Yeah.
It's funny though, because you precede that song, Let Me Let It Go, with Slow Dancing at the Wax Museum, which is probably like on the other end of the spectrum in terms of the record and the
it's true. Yeah.
Like you say, imagery.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm wrestling with, That's why it's the back and forth,
Did that balance feel different in any way on this album compared to work that you had done previously?
I think things are getting more focused. Yeah. I mean, it's just a journey for me, like it's just like all of it is getting closer to like some core intent of what I want to how I want to try to connect with others. Right. Like I feel like the service of making things is that if you get more specific about what you're like your feelings or what or these, you know, then it's a better service to someone else because it connects more with them. So I'm just trying to like sharpen the instrument to like better connect with someone who can be like, oh, I really connect with what's going on here. I understand it. I appreciate the thoughtfulness. So for me, when I hear a record or read a book or get so excited when I see how carefully considered something was. I'm like, this is like a gift that they made for me, you know, and all these other people. But I want to do that. Like, I want to keep making it a better gift for somebody, you know? So that's the evolution. It's like, how can I get more specific to better, like, excite someone the way that I've been so excited by that?
One of the really interesting things about that idea too is, you know, with yourself being quite involved in the music scene, when you connect to a piece of art created by someone that you know, is the feeling different in any way than when you say read a book from someone who's been dead for 50 years? Does the personal connection feed into the perception of the art in any way?
That's a good question. I mean, I think, and maybe you could relate, like, I think that's what I love about art is that you could, someone could have been dead for all these years and you're like, I feel like I know them. I feel like I connect with them, right?
So you're having a conversation.
Yeah, and that's magic. Like, that's time travel, you know? Like, that's what I love about, like, music is, like, the way I felt about a song I wrote a year and a half ago when, like, that first night where I was like, ooh, it's finished. Like, that excitement, I feel like someone could potentially, hopefully, feel that in like 5 years from now, and we're having a dialogue like 5 years through time. So, and then I think like just, part of like what I love about like being in this like really supportive music scene is like, it's both. It's like, you have your friends, like watching your friends grow and being on their journey of like their music and like them then writing songs that you're like, oh, this is like a song of my life. And it's made even better because I know the person, but like, yeah, there's a sweetness to it for sure, but it's not, I think like the pieces of art that I've really connected with, I do feel some identification too, you know, that's what's so special about it.
Is it ever like you're communicating with yourself? Like what you were saying there, you know, when you look back and you remember the night that you wrote it, perhaps?
That never quite happens for me, like with my stuff.
Yeah, like say you're working on a song, you know, a year and a half down the line. Does it ever feel like you're in conversation with yourself when you're working on it?
Well, now with ones that are finished, because, you know, then it gets hard. You just lose it, you know. You can't hear it the same way as that night where you're like, ah. But I will say like certain abandoned songs will then pop up, like certain abandoned lyrics. Like I was working on a song last night. I was like, oh, I wrote these lyrics years ago. They just came to mind again. And maybe they'll find a home here, you know. In that way, yeah. But I don't, you know, I think like a lot of people you probably thought can't songs because I mean, I can't, you know, I don't have like deep shame, but I'm just sort of like, it's not, I can't get back to that feeling of how I felt when I first made it.
I guess you would have to change it or add something to it then for it to work, perhaps.
Yeah. I mean, again, I don't have anything. I've never been like my punk band from when I was 15. I'm not one of those people who's like, so embarrassing. I'm like, yeah, you know, like we were doing what we could do, you know, I don't have a lot of like, I don't know. I don't have a lot of embarrassment with what I've done. So some people you'll talk to, they're like, I can't listen to that stuff. I'm not that extreme, but it just doesn't do anything. I just don't. I'm more interested in whatever I like worked on 2 nights ago. Listen to the demo like when I'm driving.
Yeah, it's not healthy to be embarrassed by what you've done, say 5 years ago, or when you're in your high school either.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because if you live like that, you'll never really be satisfied with anything.
Yeah.
Because every 10 years you'll
exactly. Yeah, I really am like very interested in like steadiness and like continuity. And even if things change greatly or you change greatly, like you can still understand the part of you that was like trying to express themselves, you know, or just at least have like forgiveness for that younger you.
What was the last new skill that you, I was going to say mastered, but perhaps just got really good at when it came to music? Because we never really master anything, you know, we're always learning, which is I think one of the lines on the album as well, actually.
Yeah.
Something along those lines.
Yeah. I'm just still learning how to play guitar, you know, like I'm a really rudimentary guitar player. I think I started playing guitar like 5 years ago. They were like always around, you know, like at rehearsal space, you know, and everybody hates it when the drummer like picks up a guitar, you know, so, but you know, like I'm learning guitar. I'm like now learning how to like maybe just basically record at home. Like I'm just like, it all feels rudimentary, but what I like about it for me is that it allows me, like there's so many things I've done forever, so it injects like some newness into it. Like I've been around writing songs since I was a teenager, but now I'm like still learning like how to play them on guitar or like learn a new chord or something. I think that balance keeps it kind of interesting for me, and almost allows me to like write simple music that maybe I wouldn't if I had, whatever, I think that there's still a sort of like childlike excitement for like writing a song, so which is cool for me, and hopefully it sounds good to other people,
I think Damon Albarn from Blur does the same thing. I've heard him talk about that, where there are certain instruments that he'll always just keep at a childlike level of knowledge in terms of how to play them, because he finds it very inspirational to go back to them, and in periods when he's having writer's block or whatever, and you can always get something new out of it if you're quite fresh with the instrument.
Totally, I love that. I mean, I think, there's like beginner's mind, right? I think it's in yoga. Yeah, probably, right? Yeah. Or what, I really love that. I think that's really important with music. In a way, to like doing things like with a beginner's mind allows me to like tap into some of that excitement that we always like when someone makes the first album or the demo, or you know what I mean, like the first single. Like, I think if you keep kind of changing things, then you're still like coming to things in a new way. I think too much expertise can really is just not what I'm interested in. Actually, I should always say that, like, because there's like incredible music made by like such dedicated players who are just virtuoso, and I love that. Like that music means a lot to me. So it's just by necessity and also by like what I'm interested in, like just getting into like punk music like when I was really young, and then that feels like a good like way for me to express myself, even though I listen to such a variety of music. That's the beauty of it. There's so many ways to do it, and the most virtuosic, incredible performance of music can touch me just as much as like people who don't know how to play their instruments at all. That's like the magic of it.
Yeah, it comes back to what we were saying about the idea though of it being able to translate things, and that it doesn't matter how you present them. It's that if you're putting something authentic and true into it.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't matter how you present it. It's going to impact your emotion on some level.
You just find what that is for you.
Does that, or how would you say that has changed for yourself, over the last 10 years or so?
I don't know. I think like I want to find a balance of like a consistency of like approach with like never being scared to incorporate newness or like new ideas or like growth. I think it's all about balance. I think like we watch people get kind of ossified in music. The thing becomes self-aware, like a band or like a person can be like, I am the person who makes songs that sound like this, so it's like a reverse engineered thing. People become too self-aware. So I think like I'm really interested in like consistency and like, just sort of like, I think that's very like attractive to me and other artists, because I'm like, ooh, there's like a trust there. Like they care enough about me to be consistent, but it can go too far, and then it can just sort of be on autopilot. So I think for me, it's been about like finding a balance of a sort of consistent approach to music making and art making, while being totally open to like new ideas, new kinds of music, new ways of doing it, like just really like listening and like paying attention to what's going on. And that is kind of like the first song, like Forever Night. That's a lot of like that, which is like, I'm so grateful to not only live in a city, but like also just like, I just always want to kind of have that humility of like, let me sit back and see what's actually going on and what people are doing and what other people are saying, and let that inform me. Like, I want to bring all that into this life while also like humbly and consistently kind of do my thing,
And the thing with Forever Night as well is that, particularly when you come back upon re-listens of the album, it feels like quite a complete introduction of where your headspace is at making this record, and you're kind of packing all your thoughts and opinions and summarizing them in this one kind of burst of a song that bounds along and bounds out of the gate.
Yeah, exactly. It is like a statement of purpose,
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
One, I guess the last motifs that we haven't touched upon yet is the idea of dreams, and something that crops up in that song, you reference them, and then I think even in Slow Dancing at the Wax Museum, there's references to them, and again throughout the rest of the album. How would you describe your relationship to dreams and what they mean to you?
Well, I think in the context of that, like, I'm kind of just talking about this like free space where my mind is allowed to wander, and I think that, like, I think the gratitude I have to still make music is like I am afforded a place where I can just freely let my mind wander and like kind of like explore. Like a lot of my, like, I feel like music and like my songs and what I'm trying to express is where I can like just like, I feel unload some of this insane romantic nature, right? Like this, like, I feel like burdened by how much of a romantic I am and how like sensitive I am all day long to everything, which like in my life I have to do work to sort of like turn down the volume of that to just be a better person, or be a more like just a better person for other people. But like music is the realm where you can just let your mind like indulge, right? Like it's just a place to just be like, this is like the dream space where I get to like, make room for this like insane, weird sensitivity and like, romantic spirit, And so to me, the whole endeavor is like, I just want this thing to run so I can continue to get a space to do that. I mean, and the hope is that like it connects with some other person who also has those feelings or whatever. Then it's complete, So yeah, that's what it means to me, So it's just like a space to like take this extreme sensitivity and actually make something out of it that hopefully connects with others. Whereas like in my day-to-day life, it's something that I sort of want to evolve past just to be able to be present in my days or be present for other people.